Hello and welcome to You Wellbeing. I'm Ashley Meyer and I'm here today with my colleague Carolyn Leigh. Hi Carolyn.
Hi Ashley.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Today we're going to be talking about the contributing factors to ME and chronic fatigue syndrome from a physiological perspective. Carolyn is a clinical nutritionist and is well versed in working with these conditions. So Carolyn, perhaps you'd like to tell us a little bit about the contributing factors to these conditions from a physiological perspective that you see time and time again. I know that everyone is slightly different.
Absolutely.
And that not one size fits all.
Absolutely.
But you doubtlessly see certain factors that seem to repeat again and again. So perhaps let us know about those factors.
Well, we'll start with the major one, stress.
Right.
That does seem to be, I would say, 75% from my own experience, a contributing factor.
Yeah.
In most people's, but not all. There is a small percentage where stress hasn't been the problem. Quite a high percentage I see have had a viral infection, particularly glandular fever. And although they think they've recovered from it, and they might have had it perhaps even 10, 15 years ago, it's something has actually re-triggered it in the body. Sometimes we can pinpoint this back to a stressful situation, but sometimes it could just be poor diet and imbalances, nutritional imbalances that have just not protecting the body and allowing these things to just activate again. Okay,
so you mentioned stress to begin with.
Yeah.
And I know that we talk a lot about stress and the maladaptive stress response.
Yes.
And we see that as a very key factor to what perpetuates the condition. People may have been sort of living sort of lifestyle that wasn't conducive to supporting their health. It might be sort of job related, relationship related, all sorts of different things might be going on in their life. And when they become unwell, then they let go of some of these stressors, but still their body doesn't sort of seem to recover.
That's correct.
And so we sort of see sort of the stress response as being sort of key to allowing the body to either heal or stay locked in sort of this condition.
Yes.
And so by addressing sort of the stress, we can then get people into sort of what we would call the relaxation state.
Yes.
And then we can sort of start addressing sort of the other factors.
Yeah.
Now, you then mentioned viruses.
Yes.
Or glandular fever, which is a common one.
Yeah.
Now, presuming that some people sort of have glandular fever and it passes and they never hear of it again.
Yeah.
Whilst for other people, that seems to sort of trigger what we know are sort of more serious fatigue-related conditions.
Absolutely, yes.
What would the other factors be that would be going on that would make that situation happen?
Well, if we go back to diet and we talk about food intolerances, food intolerances can start from birth, literally, and they can also be genetic.
Okay.
They can be inherited.
Yeah.
If they are from birth, say, for example, a cow's milk intolerance, which can actually happen just through having feed that is actually made from cow's milk. Some babies literally can't digest the cow's milk proteins. It can actually cause an intolerance to cow's milk.
Right.
It might be a lactose intolerance, but it also might be a protein intolerance to the cow's milk. Okay. However, it doesn't manifest so much at the time. It becomes more obvious as the years go on. So for example, a child might get to 13 or 14 and start to get eczema.
Yeah.
They might start to get hives, asthma.
Yeah.
Diabetes mellitus, which is the diabetes type 1, has been linked to an autoimmune disease which is triggered by an intolerance to cow's milk.
Okay, so we start off maybe with these intolerances of maybe potentially a genetic nature.
Yeah.
And we might not be aware of it.
Absolutely.
And so we just sort of keep on in that way.
Yeah.
And we look upon that as being a load on the system.
It is, yes.
And then it starts manifesting in all sorts of other things, eczema, asthma, whatever the case may be. And that continues to sort of put stress on the system.
Yes.
Okay. What else? What other than either relating to diet? Or...
Yes, again, poor diet. If we don't have the right nutrition, we don't have the right defence for our immune system.
Right.
The immune system basically starts in the gut with beneficial bacteria. We've all heard of it. You have your Actimel yogurts and things like that. But there's always a balance going on between good and bad bacteria. So basically, as long as the good bacteria is high, we are fine. But once that starts to come down, and stress again is one of the major factors that reduces this, then the bad bacteria can be allowed to take over.
Right.
And one of these is a yeast bacteria, which for most people is not a problem, but when we are actually stressed and it's allowed to overgrow, it can turn into a very aggressive fungal form called Candida.
Right.
And Candida is one of the other major factors contributing towards chronic fatigue syndrome.
Okay, and then presumably once we're in that situation with an overgrowth of Candida, then that puts more stress on the system.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. What other factors are key?
Okay, adrenal exhaustion. Mm-hmm. One of the main problems of stress is that it causes adrenal exhaustion. The adrenal glands, we all know adrenaline. Mm-hmm. It's our fight or flight hormone. Mm-hmm. But what people don't realise is that they are also responsible for a hormone called cortisol. And probably cortisol you might have heard of from a drug which is an anti-inflammatory. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is because cortisol actually controls inflammation. But what it also does is it gives us our energy. It metabolises our food for energy. And it has to be at the right level for us to have energy. So if it's reduced, our energy goes down.
Right. Okay. And so this adrenal fatigue is caused from
stress, usually stress.
From stress again.
Physical or mental stress.
Okay.
Both.
All right. Okay. So the adrenal, I think you mentioned before that you don't think you've come across one person presenting with chronic fatigue or ME that hasn't presented with some kind of adrenal exhaustion.
Absolutely.
Okay. And from a nutritional perspective, you can address that. I know that we can address that from a mind perspective as well. Mm. And so the combination of those two approaches can then get a situation where there's less of the adrenaline going into the system.
Yes.
And so then again, we're sort of starting to sort of de-stress the system.
Absolutely, and allow the adrenals to actually start to repair themselves.
Right. Okay. Any other factors that are key to the condition?
Parasites.
Parasites.
A lot of people go travelling these days to far and distant countries, don't realise they've got parasites, but they're there. And we can get them without going out of the country as well. So they're very, very common these days.
Okay.
IBS, again, it's one of those things, digestive problems, they all go root back to something like a bacterial infection, inflammation in the gut. All of these things will put a stress on what's called the endocrine system, which is your hormonal system.
Okay.
That is your adrenal glands particularly, and that again can affect the thyroid gland. So
there's the domino effect.
That's
One
the domino
thing leads to the
effect.
other.
Yes, and also the liver can't remove the toxins properly. So again, it can reduce energy.
Okay. And in the work that you do, you take an overall case history, you do the tests that are pivotal to the treatment, and then you can get a sense of what order you need to address the
I do
factors.
like a red, amber, green.
Right.
So I always go for what I think is the most urgent and then address it, gradually. However, I take each person as an individual because one size doesn't fit all, as you said.
Absolutely.
So, you have to literally tailor whatever you're doing to that individual person.
Absolutely. And then we would say addressing the stress factors then puts the body in a more relaxed state.
Yes.
And when the body's in a more relaxed state, then it's more receptive.
Yeah, responsive. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yes.
Carolyn, thank you very much for
You're
this
very
information.
welcome.
Thank you for joining us. If you'd like more information about Carolyn and her work, our website is www.uwellbeing.com. Thank you very much. Thank you, Carolyn.